Yeah, welcome to a new video and the first video in the series with a detailed look at particular opening. The first one will be the King's Gambit. So fighting the King's Gambit with black. You don't get this opening so often, but of course you need to have some idea what to do. I think the objectively strongest continuations maybe go along the line. I'll show this briefly. It's not my recommendation, but I'll still show it. I guess maybe the strongest is something along these lines, which so you can immediately see is rather sharp approach by black, weakening the king also, but keeping the pawn. These lines are very interesting to analyze, but I think the problem is that well, you get a King's Gambit in a serious game every couple of years maybe, and for instance, I never got it in a tournament game after playing e5 for a couple of years, so it's difficult to memorize all the sharp stuff. So I think it's good to have one very dependable line against the King's Gambit that you can always play if you don't have any specific idea what else to play against it. For instance, if you face a particular player where you know he's playing the King's Gambit all the time, you might think, okay, I'll prepare something special or do something else, but you need some reliable line, and try to present here one very reliable answer, and this is d5. The idea being that white doesn't have much else than capturing on d5 now, and then capturing on f4. So this is a kind of a trade-off. Black has captured the f4 pawn after all, but played d5, and you can see immediately that black will have no problems with developing his pieces. The bishops are ready to move out, and the knights will most probably land on their best squares on f6 and on c6 when the d5 pawn has gone, which will happen most of the time. So this is a very healthy approach to focus on development and not try to take the pawn, keep it, and weather the storm, so to say, when white starts his attack. Just briefly looking at this position, white really doesn't have any great alternatives. One simple thing, which nevertheless sometimes happens in bullet games or something, is white taking here, when black immediately wins with queen h4. f4, after all, weakens the king, so here you just win the rook in the corner, or white would need to move his king here, and here also black is winning immediately, chasing the king around and winning material. So white cannot take on e5, and he simply doesn't have much other moves here. He can somewhat ignore this situation in the center here, but you can just take on f4 here, and there's nothing else than this move. So it's just a transposition. White could go maybe knight c3. These moves are all very rare, but a simple answer to this would be just knight f6, transposing to the Vienna game, which usually arises via knight c2 on the second move, knight f6, and then f4. So just to mention this, these moves briefly, but white will in 99% of the time just take here. So you take on f4, and now white almost invariably plays knight f3. You can look briefly here at bishop c4. Here black actually can take the chance and gives this check on h4, misplacing the king. White plays king f1, he doesn't have much else. And now you can play bishop d6 and try to prepare to keep the f4 pawn now, and also having the queen actively posted on h5, so you maybe even have some chances to yeah, to launch an attack later on the king. You can just develop here, castling to come. Also, you could consider g5 in such a position, but of course these kind of moves are always, very, very committal, of course. Black has no particular problems here. White still plays almost all the time knight to f3, after which black just develops. And I'll show a couple of possible lines now. But what all these lines have in common is that black usually makes very sensible developing moves. The focus is get the pieces out, get the pawn on d5 back, okay, but white has problems keeping it anyway. But just develop the pieces and trying to get a quick castling in. White has a couple of moves now, and we will go through them. The main move is maybe bishop b5 check, which sort of forces a concession from black. But let's look briefly at the other moves. If white tries to keep his pawn here with c4, then this is an important point to remember. Black will play c6 here and open the position up immediately. Black is the player here with better development, and also with a potentially better king, because black will castle quickly and have a safe king, while white simply lacks the f-pawn here. So a possible continuation here would be if white accepts this. Let's say something along these lines. Black can give this check here, develop quickly, and now use the pin. Bishop d2, and now this is nothing you need to memorize really, but just to show how quickly things can go wrong for white here. Black in this position can castle and sacrifice his piece, because he's got a nasty pin going on the e file. I don't want to analyze this deeply here, but black got his piece back and has a strong attack. He went on to win a quick game against a pretty strong player. I don't have the names here in my file, but white was a 2300 something player and black was a grandmaster. So need to focus on development here and get the king quickly to castling. Development is key here. White can also, and this is the most played move here, play d4 in this position, after which black gives this check again and recaptures on d5. This is all very, very logical. And now let's say knight here, and now we got a position, or maybe bishop g4 first. Maybe this is better. I didn't enter this move in my preparation here. Let's say bishop g4. Well, when black has very nice development, and white has slight problems here with the d-pawn. It's an isolated pawn, but the unusual fact is that the f-pawn is missing, and maybe the e6 pawn, let's say f2 and e6 on the board. This would be a rather normal isolated pawn position. Here black has a nice development and also can use d4 as a target, and of course black is very solid here. This is at best equal for white, I would say. This is the c4 move. What else can white do? He can continue developing knight c2, knight c3, after which you just recapture the pawn and just simply get your pieces out. There's not much more to know here. Let's say bishop c4, just capture. Bishop b6, castles, and black even has this extra pawn on f4. White didn't manage yet to get it back, and I don't see any particular problems. I think this is just an extra pawn. I'm not sure what white compensation should be here. Or white could take on d5, play d4, and this is a somewhat important point. Here black would have the opportunity to give a check on this is my main move here, or bishop e7, to give a check here, after which white simply would move his king. This is an important point. Sometimes you have those tempting possibilities with this kind of check here, and this is often not very effective, because white doesn't mind so much to move the king to f2, and he has the idea of quick developing the bishop on f1 and play rook e1, and you just put your queen in one file, the e file, with your king. So this is yeah, recipe for disaster, I would say. So not the check here, just simply continue developing. Let's say bishop e7, c4. Note that if white takes here, you can give the check as it wins the piece. c4, and just drop the queen back, temporarily also keeping this pawn. It's not such a big deal, the extra pawn, so to say, but the nice thing about this pawn is, as long as you keep it for a while, it simply restricts white's position. The c1 bishop cannot go to an active square. It's just hindered by this pawn, and white doesn't have such a simple way to retake it, or at least needs to make some concessions to get it back. Yeah, and the following moves would be just quick development: castles, bishop g4, knight to c6 or d7, and you can just play a nice game with good piece play. Knight c3 is also a pretty rare move. Bishop c4. This is a more solid choice. Black recaptures here, and now white most often just castles. An alternative here would be to take on d5, which sometimes is played, and then knight c3. Idea being to win a tempo on the queen. There are quite a lot of squares the queen could move to, and I think more than one square is fine. But I went for queen to f5, which lends some protection to f4 and still allows quick development. Let's say d4, knight c6, queen e2 to disturb black a bit, and bishop e7. And black will just continue developing here. Of course, you need to check here. Stuff like d5 maybe disturbing the knight, but there's also knight b4 as a possible threat on c2. This is also a positive point about the queen on f5. It supports these kind of operations. And if black is allowed to, he would even play bishop e6 here and long castle even. To be honest, if white doesn't get anything quickly here, he's just a pawn down. It has a lousy position. I'm not sure. d4. I'm not sure what's the best here really for white. Also, he could castle here. Knight c6, d4, bishop e6. Note this is possible here. d5. Black can castle long. But all these kind of moves are not very complicated, I think, to even find over the board. So you just need to get your pieces out quickly. It's not something highly sophisticated to do. So bishop takes d5 is not so dangerous. In a recent game played on Grandmaster level, Hikaru Nakamura played the white side against Michael Adams, and he castled bishop e6. And then Nakamura played bishop b3, c5, and here he played somewhat weird, I'm not sure weird, but he played king h1 in this position. d4 is my main move, but king h1. After which Adams played just knight c6, and maybe you can look this game up. Adams completely outplayed Nakamura with black, and just went astray in time travel. Well, you know that you all know that Nakamura is very dangerous with low time and tactics coming, but black is just fine in this position already here, but Adams went on to build up a really nice advantage. The move which is somewhat unusual here is c5, and this is a move you might want to really remember here, because it helps to control the center. Usually black focuses on quick piece play like knight c6 and so on, but this is a problem here, because with bishop b3 white prepared stuff like this. Yeah, maybe it's not possible right now, but this is the general idea, to get the pawns rolling, and you don't want your pieces as punching bags for these pawns, so it's a good idea to put this pawn in the center. Play might continue besides Nakamura's king h1 d4, and after this black captures and develops, and this is, I think, maybe was the idea about king h1, to get the king out of this diagonal. In a game I found it went this way, and black had no problems at all. He's slightly better developed here and has no weaknesses. What's important, as a general remark, these kind of structures with 3 pawns here on the king side, 2 pawns here, and white 3 here and 2 here, so these kind of structures arise very often in this line, and what you need to notice, that quite often, despite the rather simplistic look of the position, black in fact might have some chances to do something in the long run, and this is because white's king is somewhat weaker than black's king. He just lacks 1 pawn here. Black has 3 pawns to cover the king, white only 2, and very often you can really get some kind of attack going here. Let's just for instance say black would get a bishop on the long diagonal here, c6, g2. He would always have pressure on g2. If white would try this, let's say he plays the b pawn, bishop b2, black would always have the option to play f6, blunting this bishop. So white has less defensive resources here. This position here is objectively maybe equal, but it gives chances to play for something in the long run. This kind of structure also arises frequently out of the Sicilian defense, and very often black scores quite nicely there. Let's go back here quickly. The queen e2 is also an option besides bishop b3, but there's nothing special to remember here. You just develop with bishop e7 and castles. Let's say knight c3, c6, d4, and now you actually have a choice. The main move in this position is g5, keeping this pawn, but you can also simply continue developing. There's nothing wrong with this. Just get your pieces out, and white still would need some time to recapture the pawn. So I don't see much danger here, to be honest. Let's return to this position. Bishop b5 check is, as mentioned, the main move, and here black, pretty according to the general concept here, plays c6 to speed up development. So not some clumsy looking move like, let's say, bishop d7, after white I think would most likely retreat, and then you don't get this back so easily. Plus the bishop is just ugly on d7. You don't really want to get it to g4 early. So development is key here. Just play c6. White captures, knight takes, and now black already has got 2 knights on their best possible squares. Materially it's equal, yeah, because we just grabbed this f4 pawn, so we could easily return one on c6. And now white usually goes for d4. He needs to at least try to get this pawn back. Bishop d6. and white now usually goes for this queen e2 move. He needs to do something concrete here. If he just let's say plays some quiet moves, black just continues developing and has a fine position. It's also not easy to see how white would get the f4 pawn. As I mentioned, the issue is not so much that this, in fact here it was the extra pawn. Black already has sacrificed one pawn back, but it just hinders white's pieces, this bishop in particular, and it weakens. The weaknesses here are much more prominent with the pawn in existence. Let's say knight d5 e3 might be an option, or rook to e3. This is just a weak square on e3 here, supported by the pawn, and black has some, I think, just very nice play here. Queen e2 check, bishop bishop to e6, knight g5, and castles. Very logical. Just let white take here, because black is far better developed. It's still maybe the best move. Something like this. And now castles. White can also capture here. King h8. And now we can take stock quickly here. Black has sacrificed one pawn, but of course he's got a very nice position, which can be observed by some nice tactics here. If white castles, black has a surprising move bishop c5. You don't need to memorize this, we're on move 13, but just to see the kind of stuff that can arise here if white goes this pawn grabbing route. If white captures, black has a check, and white doesn't have much else than king h1, and then knight to e4. Black has sacrificed a piece here, but it's very difficult for white to even retain a playable position. He is already forced to return heavy material here. I don't want to analyze it in detail. If you have some time and then just put this position into some computer engine and try to defend this with white, it's very tough. Of course, the key point is that that black is threatening this move here. Let's say c3, knight here. If white captures, it's checkmate on the back rank, and this of course allows the classic smothered mate on f2. So this development disadvantage can get ugly quickly. So white usually also just castles here, and here you can just continue playing this position. I would I would suggest to maybe go for a move like queen c7 here, or knight d5, keeping the f4 pawn for some time. And I think black is just fine here. We've got equal material, and black can play rook to e8 next. Maybe you go e5 or c5. It's just a good position. Yeah, that's it. The King's Gambit in 25 minutes, and I'm not quite sure why people are so afraid, or or I don't know. Afraid is maybe too strong a word, but worried that it's so much to learn. I think this is really everything you basically need to know. Get to this position, and then here just focus on quick development. It's always useful, of course, to study some games in this line. You'll find plenty of strong players going for this as black, because it's simply a very economical choice. You don't need to study lots of complicated forced lines here, and this is just a sensible way to approach the King's Gambit, because you get it so rarely in serious tournament chess that it doesn't make much sense to learn those terribly complicated lines involving taking and g5. They're very interesting, of course, but it's not really, yeah, practical. One thing I'd like to show is two offbeat tries, just quickly. These I won't show in detail, but I just want to mention them as a kind of cool sidelines that are possible. One line that I regularly play in blitz chess or bullet chess, very quick time controls. Here is knight c6, and this is quite a tricky move. Knight f3. Note that still this is not possible, of course, because of the check. Knight f3, and then the crazy looking move f5. This is the kind of line which I show, but I don't really recommend to to use it all the time. I just wanted to show that this is quite a fun alternative if you look for something fun to play in those speedy games. Then this can net a lots of quick points. The point is that lots of moves now lead to complete disaster for white, but they're nevertheless played quite often in quick time control games. For instance, knight takes e5 loses immediately because of the standard procedure here. White also sometimes goes for this capture, and black takes here, and then you see that the knight really has no moves. White has to sack this knight or return all the way. After this, black just captures, and it's quite funny. You have extra tempi and an extra pawn, so black is just winning after 5 moves. So white cannot take on e5 in any sort of fashion. He can take on f5. Then you have the move e4, knight e5, and then black has a choice even between taking on e5 or knight f6. I usually play knight f6, and then continue with stuff like d6, white taking here, and then I take on f5. Let's say moves like these here, and then black will take on f5 next, which leads to messy but interesting position. White can try in a Gambit style here, stuff like this, queen h5. Pretty complicated stuff, but it's fun to play in this quick time control games. So if you look for some crazy looking stuff but fun stuff, f5 really fits the bill. It's not refuted or something. If you check the databases or do some computer analysis, it seems playable. It looks weird, but it seems playable. In fact, maybe the best move from white's side here is this d3, and this is not the move most people would come up with. After this, black can just play d6, and game goes on from here. Certainly, this is nothing to write home about for white. So this kind of crazy line is playable. But if you look at this position, just for comparison's sake, if you imagine white's pawn on f2 and white's bishop on b5, you will have the Schliemann Gambit of the Spanish opening, of the Ruy Lopez. And here, instead of the Ruy Lopez move, bishop b5, white has played f4. So if the Schliemann is a good line, and most probably it is, why shouldn't this be playable? Because f4 is arguably a less useful move than bishop b5. This is my offbeat recommendation against the King's Gambit if you want to have some crazy complications. But it's something you should, of course, study a bit before you would consider playing this in a really important, serious tournament game, let's say. But if you're playing some blitz games, why not have some fun with f5? I have I think close to 90% or something with black, in blitz and bullet games with this, because people are simply not prepared to face this. Most likely they never saw it. So it's quite a funny alternative, but it's one of those don't try this at home lines, or at least don't try this at home before you have studied it really. So my main recommendation is d5. Let's as shown, and this is my offbeat line for some crazy fun. If you don't care so much about the result, maybe, or if you just want to have a crazy position. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll do a new video most likely tomorrow. I'm not quite sure if I'll make it, or on Monday. And this will be about more sidelines on move 2, let's say the Vienna and the Bishop's opening. I'll get from the sidelines to the main lines step by step. Yeah, thanks for watching. See you soon.